Good evening. Thank you for being here on this beautiful June 28th meeting for the Winston-Salem Board of Education, our last official meeting for June, and we have a month off, so thank you for being here. We will begin tonight with the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by an invocation. If you will please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let us pray. Lord, today we just give you praise for this day, for all of the blessings that we have seen and the blessings that are unseen to us. And Father, we ask that you help us prepare for the summer and for the break that we have from our meetings, and we ask that you just continue to bless the work of the district and of our staff. My prayer, dear Lord, is that we may be generous and considerate always, and not just thinking about ourselves, but about helping others and enjoying the blessings of summertime. Lord, just guide our steps and strengthen our hearts during these months of summer and vacation days, and grant us refreshment of our mind and our body, that we may be inspired and enlightened and focused to do what's best and the best possible work for your children, Lord. Guide our decisions this evening, and as always, give us wisdom as we make those decisions. And thank you for those gathered with us tonight. Father, may all of our words and our actions be pleasing to you. Amen. You may be seated. Should we have any additions or changes to the agenda?
Yes, Madam Chair. I would like to add a resolution to the action items to approve the 16-17 12-month employee salary schedule.
Okay, do I have other changes to the agenda? No? Do I have a motion to approve the agenda with the proposed change from Vice Chair Barr? Okay, Mr. Singletary and Ms. Taylor, all in favor? Thank you. At this time, I would like to call on Dr. Symington for some special recognitions.
Good evening, Chairman Jones, Dr. Emery, members of the board. Before I begin my presentation, I wanted to share with you a copy of selected college and university admissions for the class of 2016. And tonight really sort of brings full circle the accomplishments and all the things that we've done to recognize outstanding seniors. And tonight's recognition is special in that the Cash Abraham and Memorial Scholarships are scholarships that are co-sponsored by the Board of Education and the PTA Council. The scholarships are named in honor of Thomas Cash, a former superintendent, and Prince Abraham, a former school board member. These scholarships are designed to recognize students who exhibit scholarship, leadership, potential, and service to community. And so tonight we have the privilege of recognizing 4 outstanding students. And because these students are so outstanding, we will just share one thing about them in the sake of time. And as I call their names, we'll have them come forward. Don't believe our first recipient, Ms. Trey Andrea Fareed from Winston-Salem Preparatory Academy, who is headed to Appalachian State University. But we do have her check. I believe she will want that check for the scholarship. And the scholarship is a one-time scholarship in the amount of $1,500. And if I can do a selfless commercial plug, this scholarship is funded through donations by the community and school system employees and former employees, so we always solicit those contributions as well as PTA councils. Sorry about that. Our second Cash Abraham recipient is Mr. Zane Willard, who is a graduate of Glenn High School. And Zane was very impressive to the committee, and the committee included one of your own, Ms. Lyda Calvert-Hayes, and the interim president of PTA, Mr. Jim Smith. So Zane has been very active, or was very active at Glenn High School. He's headed to High Point University, and He is going to be majoring in marketing, and as a senior, he was the editor of the yearbook. So we congratulate Zane on his accomplishments as he heads off to High Point University. If Zane's family is here, if they would please stand. Thank you. The memorial scholarships are in honor of employees past who have worked and given service to the school district. And we have two honorees tonight. We have Ms. Jamise Braxton from John F. Kennedy High School. And Jamise will be attending North Carolina Central University, where she will be majoring in forensic science. And she impressed the committee with her perseverance and her dedication. And one of the special things that she told us about was her contributions to the Stony Glen community. So we congratulate her on that. And we wish her well as she heads off to North Carolina Central University. And Jamise's mom is here. We'd ask her to please stand. And finally, we'd like to recognize Juliana Bolin from Reagan High School. She will be attending Appalachian State University. She's undecided but has an interest in business. She has a lot of accomplishments in high school, including dance. I told her I was going to talk about dance, but actually she was class president 3 years at Reagan. So we congratulate Juliana on her accomplishments and on this scholarship. And her family, her mom is here. Family, please stand.
So that concludes our special recognitions, and thank you, former students, I guess. Wow. I see big smiles of pride on the faces of those parents. Maybe that's relief that they're through high school and now they're on to their next phase. We have no one signed up to speak at this time, so we will move right into our discussion items. And first, I will call on Matt Dixon as we discuss Teach for America.
Dr. Emery, Board Chair, Board of Education, thank you for having us this evening. As you know, we faced a teacher shortage in Forsyth County and across the state for that matter. So we're trying some creative new things to try to fill those vacancies so we can get qualified teachers in front of our students to help fulfill the goals we've set for the district. One of those ideas we have been discussing and we bring to you tonight as just information, so you can ask questions, they can provide information. You won't be voting on anything tonight, is information from Teach for America, and from them I have Nafisha Irby, who will give you a presentation, and you have copies of that at your seat.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Emery, board members, and Matt for having us here tonight. I'm Nafisha Irby. I'm the Executive Director of Teach for America here in the Piedmont Triad, and joining me are two of my staff members from our teacher support team, Rachel Wells and Karen Pleasant. So Teach for America launched in 1991, and Eastern North Carolina was one of our first regions here across the state, and there are 3 parts to our mission. So the first is that we work to recruit diverse leaders and bring them into the field of education. The second is that we provide intensive training and support for those teachers so that they can have immediate results on students. And the third is foster the leadership as alumni, and that looks different for many folks. So that can be remaining in the classroom, going into school leadership, district leadership, etc. When we decided to partner with North Carolina, and most recently, we've been addressing 2 critical issues. So the first is ensuring that we have a strong human capital pipeline funneling into our highest need schools. And the second is ensuring that we are working to close the opportunity gap. And before you are some stats that connects to those 2 critical needs. Teach for America has served as one of our nation's most diverse teacher prep programs. So we are a top recruiter for teachers of color across the nation, and that holds true here in North Carolina. So we had 44,000 applicants apply to Teach for America nationwide last year. We accepted 4,100 of those applicants. Of that number, nearly 50% were teachers of color, and nearly 50% were also Pell Grant recipients, which is the federal indicator for those who are coming from low-income backgrounds. On the slide, you also see some of our top universities that we recruit from in the state, even right here in your own backyard, Wake Forest University. So we have worked to prove, 1, that we can provide strong, talented leaders in our highest need schools, and they have proven to be extremely effective, and I will get into that data momentarily. Second is that we are providing system-level leadership for our partner districts. We have demonstrated smart investing and efficient spending of resources. As I mentioned, Eastern North Carolina was one of our first regions in the state. We later launched our Charlotte region in 2006, and after a push from the state of North Carolina and former Superintendent Mo Green in Guilford County, launched the Piedmont Triad region in 2014. Based on research from UNC, their teacher portal study, Teach for America has been proven to be our state's most effective teacher prep program for early career teachers, and that is solely based on the value-added system. So the study revealed how Teach for America teachers stack up against other teacher prep programs for early career teachers, and you see the slide before you has our elementary, middle school, and high school performance. Teach for America teachers have grown our students tremendously year over year, and not only are we growing students according to the value-added system, but we are doing that in our most vulnerable schools and with our most vulnerable populations of students. This slide just covers some of the urgent needs that we've addressed in Guilford County. So 1, we wanted to make sure that Guilford County, as I previously mentioned, had a strong talent pipeline funneling into their schools. The second was addressing STEM. So when we launched in Guilford County, we launched with primarily focusing on secondary schools. 1, they found that it was extremely difficult to staff their secondary high-need schools. And they also found that it was difficult to find teachers certified in STEM fields for those schools. That has since evolved. We actually now are placing an elementary school as well in Guilford County, and so we're looking strategically at feeder pattern placements and a variety of other strategies that we can utilize to scale impact at an accelerated rate based on the new evolving needs of the district. And based on our principals that we partner with, we had 100% of our principals surveyed, and the last circle, if you will, shows the satisfaction of our principals with our teachers. So how do we do it? The first is that we focus on our recruitment efforts. So we recruit folks who have an unwavering belief in the potential of all students. We also recruit folks who have a demonstrated leadership and measurable success, perseverance in the face of challenges, strong critical thinking skills, organizational ability, respect for diverse experiences, and exceptional interpersonal skills. Teach for America trains its teachers on a framework called Teaching as Leadership, which has 6 core principles, which are before you. The first is ensuring that we set ambitious goals for students, regardless of circumstance, that we hold expectations high and we support students to meet those expectations along the way. We invest both students and families in the work that we're doing, understanding that this is a community effort and we are trying to build a movement toward educational equity, so we need all stakeholders invested and involved. The third thing is that we plan purposefully to achieve those goals. The fourth, executing effectively and adjusting course when needed, so using data-driven instruction. Improve to accelerate learning, so we continuously focus on the rate at which our teachers are growing over time, and then work continuously to overcome challenges, which is our relentless pursuit of results. Training. Our training model consists of several stages. So the first is spring onboarding, which is independent work time. Our core members, as we call our teachers, work with our regional staff members to go through onboarding, which is basically orienting them into what it means to be a Teach for America core member and learning more about the communities they'll be entering into. The second is our regional induction, which is 1 week here in the Piedmont Triad. Summer Training Institute, which currently is taking place in Atlanta. Eastern North Carolina has a local institute, so that is taking place in the northeastern part of our state. That lasts for 5 weeks. Eastern North Carolina is an example of one that lasts for up to 8 weeks. And then regional orientation, which for us is 2 weeks, and then 2 additional weeks with Guilford County Schools. Ongoing support, each teacher is given a coach, and that coach works with them in their classroom through one-on-one observations, professional development in a cohort model, content-specific and grade-level-specific development, and our teachers also go through, our university partnership currently is with East Carolina University to get their certification in their content area. Our teachers are required, based on law, to pass the Praxis 2 or Pearson exam before they enter into classrooms and before they interview with principals, but they are given a 2-year window to become certified. We are currently working to establish a local university partnership. Every one of our regions across Teach for America partners with a local university, and that university not only serves as a certifying body for teacher prep, but it also serves as a certifying body for school administration, district leadership, etc. Here's our footprint across the state. The blue counties represent counties where we currently have a Teach for America region, and the orange county represents areas where we have Teach for America alumni. And the numbers to that are over 1,800 leaders representing Teach for America across North Carolina. Roughly 80 of them are school district and system level leaders, school leaders. They're impacting over 60,000 students, and again, have proven to be the most effective for early career teachers. Most of our placements exist in elementary school and STEM across North Carolina. We also have what's called the North Carolina Teacher Corps. We took that program over from the state of North Carolina. That is our effort to ensure that we have more North Carolinians entering into Teach for America. So instead of losing them to neighboring states, we are working to increase the number of North Carolinians who are interested in education, keeping them here. Roughly 50% of our core in the Piedmont Triad are homegrown North Carolinians. 70% of them are teachers of color. So we welcome Winston-Salem, Forsyth County, and the thought of joining a nationwide movement. We have 53 regions across the United States, each doing some amazing work as it relates to ensuring that we're building a movement toward equity for students. And here are some quotes from our partners in Edgecombe, Guilford County, and Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools. So what would it take? So currently we are already on bullet 3, which is school board presentation. From here, the process typically consists of the school board considering a vote on a contract with Teach for America. We would work to discuss placement strategy based on district needs, and we would spend the 2016-2017 academic year recruiting for a 2017-2018 partnership. And ongoing, we would look at whether or not, based on the needs of the district, if those needs have evolved over time. So an example, for instance, from Edgecombe County is they had a focus on talent more broadly, so not just teachers. So what they did was created a local pipeline program for teachers to become certified as principals. Out of the 14 principals in that district, 5 of them are Teach for America alums. In Pitt County, what that looks like, it was when we started our partnership there, they focused on 4 schools that they wanted to funnel Teach for America Corps members into and scaled impact in those 4 schools over time. So while we have had a widespread in Guilford County, we can look more strategically based on the needs of this community in this district. And that's it. I know my time, I probably exceeded my 10 minutes. I tried to get it all in, but I do want to create time for questions.
Board members, do you have questions at this time? Any questions? Wow. Great, very informative. Thank you for the packet and for the presentation.
You're welcome.
We may have to process, and then we'll if we have any questions, we'll make sure that we let Dr. Emery and Matt know.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So at this time, I would recognize Dr. Emery for discussion on summer professional development.
Thank you, and I'm just going to stay put if that's all right with the board. 3 items to make you aware of. Again, these are not action items, awareness. 2 of them, in fact, we would be back in August because there are contracts involved for your contract approval if we get everything worked out. So I'm going to jump right in. The first 2 of the 3 are work that we are working on with Appalachian State University. They have not had an urban district partner and have welcomed the opportunity to work with us, particularly in the area of literacy. So one of the first projects is we are currently working on a memorandum of understanding that would bring a literacy credentialing program to our district. It would be housed at Cook, but it would be open to teachers, elementary teachers across the district, essentially allowing them to earn 6-semester courses of credit and become credentialed as reading specialists. There are some nationally renowned reading folks at Appalachian who we are grateful to Amy Nail for connecting us to some of those folks, and Paula Wilkins has also done a lot of bridge work on this. We are also looking right now as to whether we would offer partial tuition so that people have some investment in this. Can we find funding to pay for all the tuition? So there's some incentive for it. The idea, though, is to increase opportunity in our district for our own teachers to get that reading credential add-on. We are not looking at a start date until 2nd semester, so it would be January of 2017. But the need to get a memorandum finalized in August or early September so that they can plan and we can advertise and make sure we have a cohort there. With this also comes a clinical lab that would be housed at Cook, because part of this program does the clinical experiences with students on site. And so while staff could benefit from around the district, we felt like this really supports the model literacy piece that we're trying to build there, that Cook become the place that anyone in the district can go to see and practice and learn effective literacy strategies. The second is basically training for our reading interventionists. You know that we're ending our first year and a half of all of our elementary schools having full-time reading interventionists. Those folks serve children 4 days a week and have training every Friday. And Cynthia Barber, who is in our district, has provided a lot of that training. We have been collecting data on the students served, and one of the pieces that we think is missing is more intensive focus on reading comprehension. And so the second piece with Appalachian is working on some very targeted support for our interventionists in reading comprehension skills. And that would just be brought here and delivered. And again, with both of these, we're looking at outside funding sources, but because they would be contracts with the district, we will be back to ask you to approve. So possibly the training contract for reading interventionists and a memorandum of understanding with Appalachian for the actual reading specialist credential that's coming. And then finally, we've talked a little bit about summer training options. The folder, the colored folder you have at your place is the catalog that our instructional services department put together. There's an online version of that if you'd like to see it, but I just wanted you to get a sense of what was available this summer for our staff, and just also express my appreciation to our instructional staff for being willing to move what we traditionally do the first week of school up into the summer so that our teachers can have more time to devote to their classrooms during the week they return in August. And all of these are supports that we financially will look for outside funding for, but I just wanted you to be aware that they were going on, and also to set the stage on these two that will require your approval. In case you have questions or concerns or comments, you can let me know over July. Questions?
Dr. Emery, the piece for the summer that we're doing, has that already opened up for people to be able to register for those?
Right, the catalog
Yes.
went out, and they can go into My Learning Plan to register, and it's a little bit of an experiment because when we've done it during that first week back, it really hasn't been optional, and this is optional. We've asked principals to help us encourage so we get coverage of new content areas or things that folks need to be abreast of, and we'll measure to see what that participation is like, but we've had really good response from teachers about...
That was my next question.
And there are stipends that come, so we're not just saying, hey, come out of your goodwill, so folks also know if they participate, there is compensation for their summertime as well.
Great. Additional questions for Dr. Emery? Thank you for the update. Next, I will recognize Chick Plunkett to discuss the laptop leasing agreement.
Good evening, Chairwoman Jones and board members and Dr. Emery. I'm here tonight representing kind of a joint effort between finance and technology. We're proposing, it's not on the ballot, it's not on the agenda tonight for you to approve. We'll be coming back with the actual contract in August. We wanted you to be aware, and we presented at Finance Committee today a proposal that we will present to you to replace all of the laptops that our classroom teachers use. Actually, it'll be a little bit expanded past that because of technology's work on getting us a great deal on devices. But it will replace the 5-year-old models or older that the teachers are currently carrying with a superior model that'll also have a docking station that will allow it to replace the desktop unit that's in the classroom. So they'll have one device that they can use in their classroom to run their classroom solutions, and then undock it and take it home with them at night for any needs they may have, or to meetings and so forth. So we're really excited about that. It'll be a 3-year program. We're funding it with the gracious gift of the county commissioners that have given us an extra funding to be used for technology only. So it's a great source for that, and we're appreciative of them for continuing that funding. And after the 3 years, the lease that we have negotiated has a dollar buyout clause. So our hope would be that at the end of 3 years, those devices would still have some usefulness to them as student devices to be used in classrooms and all, and would roll into another. So it's really part of our district's approach to a technology refresh or device refresh comprehensive program. But this year we use the money to do that for students. And so next year, we're proposing, when we bring it back to you, that we'll do that for the teachers in the classrooms, and then some support personnel as well, like social workers and so forth. We'll have enough to spread around as much as possible. Any questions that I can answer?
Questions? Thank you. We would like to thank our county commissioners for being very supportive, not only in the efforts for a refresh program, but just overall for being supportive of our school district and trying to meet our needs. We are very appreciative of that. Next, I'll call on Rebecca Young to have a discussion on our academically and intellectually gifted AIG plan revisions.
Good evening, and thank you so much for your time tonight. I'm here to provide an overview of the AIG Plan for Services that has been developed over the 2015-2016 school year by the district's AIG Advisory Committee. Can you hear me? As you're aware, North Carolina has legislation that mandates that school districts provide differentiated education services for students who demonstrate a high capacity for higher performance than their peers at that age group. And the Article 9B provides certain regulations for districts to follow, but districts are encouraged to create their local plan based on their individual needs. Much like the Exceptional Children's Division, this plan communicates how we will identify students who have this high performance capability and how we will then meet their needs. The plan includes how the district plans to implement and coordinate services K-12, and it also supports decision-making frameworks for continuous improvement of those services. The foundation of the plan is based on 6 standards from the North Carolina legislation, and I'll go over those briefly as well. The AIG Advisory Committee is comprised of representatives from all of our stakeholder groups. We had wonderful participation over the course of this year, and many individuals and groups who were not on the committee also provided feedback, which I'm very grateful for. There was a 3-stage process. The committee conducted a formal review of the current 3-year plan. We prioritized initiatives that we wanted to include in our next 3-year plan, and we prepared recommendations for the schools, all of the stakeholders at the schools, as well as for our school board. The second part of the process included sharing those recommendations with our stakeholders at the schools and inviting feedback from school stakeholders as well as community stakeholders through various surveys and interviews throughout the school year. Once the plan is hopefully approved, we will post this on the website for everyone to review as well. The third piece of this was a presentation to the Curriculum Committee, tonight's presentation to the Board of Education, and in July, submission to the Department of Public Instruction for their review. They will review our plan and provide recommendations by December of 2016. So just a brief overview of our key initiatives by standard. Standard 1 is student identification. The AIG Advisory Committee has proposed a realignment of our eligibility criteria, our identification criteria, that will honor the new state requirements and recommendations as well as overall program integrity. Our hope is that this will allow the district to focus, the schools individually to focus on gifted services for their individual student needs, as well as balance resources. It will balance and enhance our regular education, IB, and other magnet options. It also simplifies the pathways for better tracking of data and making informed decisions for instruction once students are identified. It supports further opportunities for our underrepresented populations and aligns with general indicators of giftedness as well as other similar districts' criteria. Standards 2 and 3 support our educators in providing these services to students who need them. The differentiated curriculum and instruction, we're looking at ways to provide online and face-to-face collaboration for our educators in how they're providing services at every level of AG and HAG. And we're working on that K-12. We're also providing, we've launched an initiative actually yesterday and today we started with materials designed for gifted students, and we're providing these materials in reading and math as well as the training to go with them, and teachers are very excited of your support of that program. Standard 4, the AIG Advisory Committee is very excited about some new initiatives at our K-2 level, including further enrichment materials and training opportunities for teachers in these schools, or at those levels, excuse me. We're also looking into gifted service options in our LEP classrooms, as well as providing additional training and material support in schools that have a high number of our underrepresented populations. Standard 5, community partnerships, is all about inviting the community in and sharing what services we're providing for our students. And so part of our initiative in the 2016-2019 plan is to simplify our communication, to provide a standard level of communication throughout the year for our community members, our families, and to increase the communication that's coming at the district and the school level about our AIG services, so that families understand exactly what's being offered and how they can be involved. Program 6 is Standard 6 is program accountability, and based on the 2016-2019 initiatives, we're looking at creating SMART goals, much like our schools create their SMART goals for continuous improvement. We would like to create those based on this plan that will allow us to track our progress in these key initiatives for each standard. I think that I speak on behalf of the educators in this district when I say thank you so much for your support of this program. Winston-Salem Forsyth County Schools offers wonderful opportunities for our gifted students, and we appreciate your continued support. Thank you so much, and I'm happy to answer any questions on the plan. I know that was a brief overview, but you've had the materials.
Questions? Rebecca? Anyone? I know we had to condense this for this evening, but really dove in depth at the curriculum committee meeting, and thank you for your work in this plan and all those stakeholders who were part of the planning process. I know it has been a long journey to arrive at the final product, so thank you. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Johnson, do you have a question?
Yes, my concern is, are you planning on opening up some more sites for these AG kids or HAG kids in the city? I notice we got some kids that live here in the city, and we just don't feel like going all the way out to Southwest. We got about 10 or 12 schools in the city that we can utilize. That seems to be the main problem with a lot, especially black kids. We don't want to go out to Southwest. We need some schools here in the city here. Eastern part of the city, the northern part of the city, but the south is just too far for us to be running out there to go to school every day.
Yes, thank you for your question. We do provide AIG services at every single one of our schools, and part of the key initiatives in each standard is to enhance the services at each of those schools. We do have a targeted, highly academically gifted program at 2 of our sites, and due to the nature of that program and the training involved for the teachers and the resources, we are currently limited to providing it at those 2 schools. But the district does provide transportation options for families whose whose children qualify for those services.
Mr. Johnson, I believe that one of the pieces for us moving forward on what do our HAG sites look like, not only for elementary school, but also for Haynes, and what's kind of a plan for them. The first kind of piece in that was to have this plan in place and reviewed, and so I believe we spoke at the curriculum committee meeting about a timeline for when we can start having these discussions on what's the criteria and reviewing that whole process of where we can put them. So I believe in the next, once we come back and start meeting in August, we'll have some of that conversation to talk about what your concerns are.
Yeah, see, the school system hasn't grown much. We have picked up almost 25,000 students since 1968. But we still have 1 or 2 sites for those kids. You mean to tell me with 25 additional students, I know that we got a lot of students that are not getting the help they need. We're just going to have to do better than what we're doing. Brunson, Wiley, Paisley, Reynolds, those were the schools my child was in school long years ago. And since that time, we've picked up 25,000 kids. We went from about 25,000 to 54,000. So I know we got some kids that are not getting the services they need.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Other questions for Ms. Young at this time? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So for our next two items, I will call on Theo Helm to discuss our 2016-17 bell times and the 2017-18 calendar.
So the first item are bell times for next year. Each year the board has to approve those, any changes, before we put them into effect. The only request we have was mentioned a couple weeks ago when Paula Wilkins and Constance Hash were talking about their application for the restart at Cook Literacy Model School. They've requested to extend their school day by 30 minutes. So their bell times would change from 7:55 to 2:25. That was this past year, and they've asked for that to change from 8:15 to 3:15 to provide more class time. And that's the only change that we are requesting for next year.
Questions on the bell time schedule? Okay, thank you.
So the next step is the calendar for next year. We have, let's see, most of this you've seen before, so we'll put this here. Since last meeting, we've surveyed, gathered some more feedback at the board's request, and we discussed a little bit in policy committee about different options. The survey that we took of employees showed that more than 70% thought it would be a good idea to move 2 workdays from the end of the year in June to the beginning of the year in August. So the calendar that we've presented reflects that. We also gathered some information about the way early release days are scheduled, and employees are about 50-50 on whether they like them as we proposed or if they'd like them later in the year. Option A here has them as originally proposed, as we talked about in committee meeting. Sorry. You'll see there, this is the kind of the second option A, which moves one of the days that had been in September to the second semester, so that you have days in September, October, and then 4 of them in the second semester. So at this point, we are happy to entertain any questions, any suggestions that you all would like for the 17-18 calendar.
Or do you have questions? I know we had some discussion at policy committee around the calendar, as well as we tabled it from our last meeting due to some concerns that we had. Do you have any questions of Theo at this time? This is on our agenda for action tonight, and of course we can have some discussion at that point as well. But if you have additional questions now that you'd like to ask.
Yes, and Theo, I still have a concern with having an early release day right when school starts, and then also looking at February 2 early release days. That's just board members, that's just a concern of mine, when you're talking about the instructional time for kids, and then also with the parent pickup issue.
That's good. Additional comments at this time? No. Thank you. We'll go back to Dr. Emery at this point to discuss professional service contract.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Under your action items tonight, you have a recommended contract. This is a contract with former Accountability Director Dana Wrights, and you have the actual copy of the contract. Again, this is her having to leave our district for good reason, her own family life, but our agreement to try to continue to have the reporting and analysis component. It also frees up time for Mr. Kraft, who's now leading that department, to help with training. In the last 2 years, we have moved to full-time curriculum coordinators and added testing coordinators, and there have been a lot of challenges with that, so there's a lot of training needs. Unfortunately, we have gone to almost year-round testing at some level, particularly, I think, elementary and high school are those areas where we seem to have the most testing. So the department has been understaffed for a very long time and had made multiple requests for additional staffing. So we think this is a nice compromise. It gives us services of two very competent people quite efficiently and economically for the district. And this is a one-year contract. We'll try it to see if it meets our needs, and we certainly can determine from there the longevity of it. And we will be back under action to recommend, but if you have questions, I'm happy to entertain them.
Questions of Dr. Emery at this time? Thank you. Next, I will like to call on Lauren Richards for some discussion on the renewal and extension of our food service management contract.
Good evening, Chairman, Dr. Emery, members of the board. Thank you for having me. One of the action items on the agenda this evening is the renewal for the 5th year of the Chartwell's food service management contract. And some information that you may not know is Chartwell's has been with us since 2002, and so this will be our 15th year partnering with them. During that time, some of the things that they have brought to us, and I wish I had more time to be able to go extremely in depth because it's a magnitude of information. Innovative menu options for our students. If you've been out to the schools, you see that elementary students have up to 3 entree choices a day, middle school students 4 to 5, and our high school students even 8 entree choices a day. That's a lot of options for those students to have. We've enhanced our employee professional development. Just last year, we added a training supervisor to be able to provide those professional skills to our employees in the kitchen, customer service, to allow them opportunities for growth and promotion. Nutrition education in the cafe in the form of promotions and our Simply Good food focuses, as well as materials available to teachers in the classroom to be able to carry that education down the hallway and then hopefully into the homes of our students. And then also in the form of investment funds. We are currently undergoing renovation at West Forsyth High School. That investment is helping us do that. They also contribute to the Angel Fund that allows us to help pay for negative balances throughout the school year. And so the current contract that we're in began in July of 2012. Tonight we're proposing renewal for additional year. That will be the 5th and final year of the current contract. The fixed cost per meal for this contract will stay the same as the 2015-16 school year, and the management fee will stay the same as well. During Chartwell's time here with us, our program has been self-supporting, able to year over year be able to put money back into the program, back into our students, and continue to develop our staff and provide innovative solutions to our students. In January of 2017, I will be coming before you and we will be doing a new RFP for a new 5-year contract that will begin July 1st of 2017. And so, again, I wish I had tons of time to go into a number of different things. You know, a lot of times we focus on the local things that we do here, but what you may not hear us talk about all the time is that there's actually national recognition for our account through the Chartwell's division. And so in 2013, 14, and 15, we were Account of the Year in the South region for all of Chartwell's accounts. Excuse me. In 2013, Chrissy Bryan, a district employee, she is the cafe manager at West Forsyth High School. She was the Hourly Associate of the Year. And in 2016, the current school year, Tracy Fulp, the manager at Philo Hill Middle School, is nominated for Hourly Associate of the Year, and she will be joining the Chartwell's team in Philadelphia in the next few weeks to see if she will receive that award. So I hope that you will consider renewal. Do you guys have any questions for me about the contract?
Questions at this time? No, thank you.
All right, thank you
very much.
Madam Chair, while she's making her way back, one thing I also wanted to say about this, Chartwell's, since the beginning of this contract, has made a sizable contribution to the district annually for pretty much anything we choose to use it for. And we have, in my tenure, supported we had a lot of talk about professional development. The Title II improving school quality that we talked about earlier at Finance can only be used for our licensed personnel. So we take a sizable portion of the Chartwell's contribution and give it for professional development for our classified staff. OSHA requirements, the class PD, the big conferences we had this year were all funded from that. You also have heard us talk a lot about PELP and that experience, and so that the district doesn't bear any of that summer expense, we pay for that training out of the Chartwell's contribution as well. So we also appreciate that they support the growth and development of all of us, not just the child nutrition staff in the district. So I just wanted to add that.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, you're up, Dion. So now we have lots of renewal and extensions of contracts for after school and some programs. So Ms. Jenkins, take it away.
Thank you, Chairman Jones, Dr. Emery, and board members. You do have quite a few contracts on for action tonight, but I am going to talk to you briefly about 3 of those. These are contracts that are on for renewal. They are programs that we've had in the district for a number of years, and this is their annual renewal. The first contract I'd like to talk about is the contract with the YMCA of Northwest North Carolina. We've had a long-standing relationship with the YMCA. They're a very strong community partner, and they provide, as you can see from the contract, an array of programs and services that benefit our students. So I just want to take a moment just to highlight some of the key points of the contract. They provide after-school tutoring services through their 21st Century grant that they have received from the state. And they provide tutoring services as well as enrichment services at these locations. The great thing about this is that at these locations, they're able to employ our own teachers to provide the academic services at these schools, and representatives from the YMCA provide the enrichment services. In addition to the 21st Century programs, they also have a number of summer learning academies at 11 locations, including a new location at Paisley for the Cook Literacy Model School this summer. Another major piece of this contract is they provide their pools for our students, either for enrichment services or for our swim teams. A number of our schools have very active swim teams, so they offer lanes for those teams to practice as well as for meets. One thing I do want to point out about the YMCA this year is they've added 2 schools to their list of schools they can accommodate for their swim team practices, Atkins as well as Parkland High School. Previously, those 2 schools were covered under the YWCA. However, the YWCA, as you may recall from last year, has gradually decreased their ability to accommodate those teams and the use of the pool. So the YMCA this year has stepped in and offered the use of the Winston Lake Y for those two teams. We are still trying to finalize the dates and times for the Parkland team, which is why you'll see to be determined there, but we're excited that they were able to accommodate these 2 additional teams this year. So in addition to the swim team practice and meets, they also are able to accommodate a number of our schools for other school programs. For example, the downtown school uses the William G. White YMCA for a school program, as well as for their regular PE services, because they do not have a traditional gym facility. And then the YMCA offers some of our schools the opportunity to bring students over there for other incentive and reward opportunities, such as field day and swim opportunities and that sort of thing. So they provide a number of services for our district. We've had a long-standing agreement with them, and this is their annual renewal. Are there any questions about the YMCA contract? The next contract I'd like to talk briefly about is the contracts that we have with Imprints Cares. Imprints Cares provides an after-school child care program for the district, and they are at 10 locations. However, the renewal for this year is seeking to add 2 additional after-school care locations at Bolton Elementary School and Spees Elementary. So they are increasing their level of service and the amount of service that they are providing our students. The way that this program works is the parents who participate pay a fee for the services, and the Imprints Cares organization pays the school system for the use of our facilities and rent, as well as for the summer school program that they offer at Jefferson and Meadowlark. So this is a program that's been in place for a number of years. The renewal is actually an extension of the contract that was signed in 2014, but they've had this program for a number of years. Are there any questions about Imprints? The last contract I'd like to talk about is AlphaBest. Very, very similar. They offer an after-school care program as well at 5 of our locations. They're able to serve through these 5 locations about 300 families each week, and the percentage of the families that they've been able to serve has gradually increased over the years. They're proposing in this contract, number one, a slight increase in the fee that families pay. It's about a 5% increase in that fee. There's a chart that's attached to the contract that you can see that shows those fees have remained somewhat constant over the years, but they are proposing a slight increase this year. But they are also proposing an increase in the revenue share model with the district. So they're proposing a 2% increase to that amount. And the chart to show how much they've been able to contribute to the district over the last few years is also included in the contract. Are there any questions about those 3?
So I have some questions and some comments, more I think are comments. Most of the questions have been answered for me. So I thought that this read of, number one, the contract, especially with the Y, I've always known the Y has been a big partner to help our district, but I think when you really read the contract and find out what all that they will allow our schools to use their facilities for special recognitions or reaches, to be able to they help with field days. I mean, just a lot of things that I think I knew that, but I really forgot that, and it was, I knew that as a parent, a PTA parent that would see them out there doing things, but when you think about that and the number of schools that they touch across the district. So I'm thankful for the partnership that we have with them. But also, I did have a few questions, or I think I don't know if it's even a concern, but as we talked a little bit today in policy, and we were talking about the calendar, we were talking about grants. So the 21st Century School Program, the after-school program. So the Y has, obviously they have money from the grant, so they have a program that they run. We also, as a district, have a program with the same caption that we run. And it seems that, so my concern is that much like our summer school program that we kind of took on from Bell, my question is, have we looked as a district as what would that look like for some of these after-school programs? And if everything that we do as a district should align to our goals, are we 100% sure that these programs are really accelerating and hitting those things that our students need? And they may be, but it seems that we have a lot of programs that are going on. And I'm not saying that any of them are bad, but is this something that we could look at as a district to where we can take this in and we can make sure that we're really truly meeting the needs of our students? And I know we can't do that for the next year, but I would really like for us through 16-17 to be able to look at that and what would that look like moving forward, because though they're providing a lot of services, it's not in all of our schools. I don't think we would see consistency across the board, and I think that's important. We have said in everything that we're doing, the district needs to own that, and we need to be consistent. And we're serving, with taking on our summer school program, we're serving 3 times, did you say, Dr. Emery, more students this year than we did last year. And we knew that we were not happy with those results. And so I would like to see maybe that same approach to some of these things. So I don't know if that's something we can look at in the 16-17 year. I'm appreciative of what we have now, but that conversation of, is it really aligned, does it meet our needs, and can we do a better job taking it on?
And we have had these discussions, and so I think taking the year and really taking a thoughtful look at this the timing is good on it. We had some discussion almost a year ago about different providers and the history of that and how we got to it. I guess at one point in time the district actually even had a fair, and let schools come in and had providers come in. So we encourage sort of a select, and I think our philosophy's changed since then. And so one of those is, as you say, what can we provide at what cost? As a district, likely we aren't trying to make a profit, so we might be able to provide a service and also sustain a program. I'm sure we could learn something from child nutrition that's already doing the same thing, which is a self-sustaining program. Sam Mills has already actually this spring started. The first step was pulling together the principals of all of our schools that offer after-school programming and just starting to talk about what does it look like, how do we assess it. So instead of just saying it's okay, I don't have any problems with it, to your point, what's the effectiveness of it? What kinds of things are going on? Can we extend academic opportunity into that time if children are going to be there anyway? So I think the mechanism's already in place to keep that moving. Certainly we need legal help in terms of, how we approach that, but I think it's worthwhile. And I guess I would just say, I think all of us know it would be its own business, and so we would need to staff it appropriately and be sure that if we're going to run a program, we do it well. And,
right. Okay. Well, I think as we start to maybe halfway through the year or several months out, we could have just an update where, what does it look like? And we may come back and say, no, we don't want to do this, or we do, but just so we could look at that. And then I think I did have a question, and Daryl, Chick, there's lots of folks in the room that probably can answer this, but the piece that comes back to the district, so the 60% that comes back to the district's general fund, how do we use, I think that's kind of probably also captures our rental fees that we had lots of those contracts months ago for people who rent our facilities. How is that money used? Is it earmarked for particular purposes? It's just in the general fund, or historically, what have we done with those funds?
So it's my understanding that and Chick or Darryl, feel free to chime in if you want to, but it's my understanding that the money collected for rental fees as well as these types of fees are put in a general kind of operating expense account, and they're used for maintenance needs. So maintenance needs for the buildings or supplies, assistance in paying custodial fees, those sorts of things. So it goes back into the building to help with maintenance and upkeep, as well as for staffing. Is that correct, Chick? Or if there's anything else you want to add, feel free to.
Yeah, the revenues in particular, it's a 60-40 split. The 40% goes back to the school that houses the individual programs, and that's at the discretion of the school to use at the principal's discretion, pretty much. The 6% that stays with the district goes in just to the general current revenue fund and is used for other non-budgeted items as needs arise during the year. So it's not tied directly to the expenses of the program.
Okay. Thank you. And then, so just one last comment, and that has to do with, so if you read the contract, so I learned, several things, I think, that, one, about some of it's hard to schedule all of our swim teams, we know that, but also some of the extra things that we were really providing for some schools, and one school in particular that we have had a lot of discussion about as a board this year, and that's Winston-Salem Prep. And so when we see that the Y is offering them access to their pool at the downtown locations, also like a swimming portion of the program that they could use, but I think also in looking into that, Winston-Salem Prep has not been using that in the last couple of years, and I think we as a board had talked about really trying to make sure that we gave Prep the resources they need. Also, they were able to use the weight room facility at the Salem Lake Y, which is a great Y, and I don't know if that's being utilized. So I guess I would like to say that I want to make sure if those resources are there, that the school's utilizing those resources, because we have really said we would like to make an investment there to make sure that they are successful. And so when these things are out there and then we find out that they haven't been used, that concerns me. And, so they're all my comments. Mr. Johnson?
See, a large segment of our students, especially black kids, go to recreation centers. I don't know of any funds that's coming to the recreation centers because that's where the bulk of the black kids are. Now, the wife does a pretty good job with cities from middle-class people, but the poor kids go to these recreation centers, and I think about the only thing I've ever seen out there is breakfast and maybe lunch, something like that. I've had a program for 17 years, and all of my kids are coming from the recreation centers for my golf program. And I don't know who else is funding those programs, those kids, but that's where the bulk of the black kids are.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. And I think the one piece that I was speaking of is that this is, the Y is offering this during the instructional day. So it's not something that's after school, it's actually part of the day while they're already at school, but we're just not utilizing that.
They're trying to do the same thing with the limited resources they have.
Right.
Tutor those kids, they have a lot of activities.
And just in brief response about Winston-Salem Prep, I understand where you're coming from as far as their utilization of these services and resources, and I do know that after speaking with the principal that they are hopeful and exploring some opportunities to be able to use those resources that are being offered to them. They have some staffing changes coming up, so hopefully that's something that they'll keep in mind as they make those changes.
That's great. Thank you for letting me talk. Sorry.
No problem. Are there any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you. No, they just weren't using it.
Just a quick question, Dana, concerning, we're talking about Winston-Salem Prep. Would they have the transportation during the instructional time to get to the YMCA?
They would be, I don't know if you can hear me, but they would be able to arrange that because they leave it up to the teacher, the PE teacher, to arrange for that, and if they're going to use it for athletic purposes, for the athletic director and the coaches to arrange for that. So that transportation would be provided.
It would be provided.
Yes.
Okay. So I think the one part of the contract that talks about the downtown school, so there's pool time for Winston-Salem Prep during the day and also during 1 month of the school year, and I think it's on page 90 of the contract. And so the swimming portion of the program has been going on since 2003, 2004, but the Winston-Salem Prep has not used this in several years, in the past 2 years for sure. So anyway, but that's part of the, and then also, I think it's later on, maybe on page 91, or I know it's under like section Q, facility improvements, which is kind of a strange place for it to be in the contract, but that's where it addresses Winston-Salem Prep being able to use the weight room at the Y to enhance their facilities since they don't have that there. So additional questions?
I guess this is a weird, do they know they have access, and have they known the entire time that access was?
They are aware that they have that ability. It's my understanding that they have used the pool, but they just have not used it in the last few years at least. They do not make as much use of the weight room facility or much use at all of the weight room facility. They do have a small facility there, but I think the spirit of having this option in the contract originally was the feeling that those facilities weren't as adequate, and that there may be more of a need. However, it's not, at least after speaking with the administrators there, it's not being used on a regular basis.
And again, I just bring those points up because I think we wanted to make sure as a board that they had resources, everything that they needed to be successful, and so we want to make sure if they're there that they're being utilized, and if there's obstacles in the way, transportation or something like that, that we address that.
Well, and I think Dr. Montague Davis, soon to be, is here, and we can just ask her. I mean, one of the things we've asked is what they're using, but maybe we ask Carol to go back and make sure, as you say, is there something getting in the way of this? Can your district support you? Can the district help you make better use of these resources? I did understand, and I'm not a weight room guru, I fancy myself that sometimes, but I did understand that in the original contract, there was absolutely no weight room or conditioning area at prep, and that it has slowly been growing, and it is much more user-friendly, and since it's on-site, it makes it more convenient. And so that might be some of the explanation for the weight room piece, but the pool piece, we certainly should follow up, on both of them, and just see, is there something that could be done that would help encourage the use of those.
And so I think that also, if we have that in our contract with the Y, if that is something that the need it's not a need, and we have the facility on campus at prep, then maybe we can take that out of the contract, and we look forward to make sure that then they can help us meet a need of another school or another need of Winston-Salem Prep. So I hate to see it in there if it's not a need, because I think their mission is to really help fill in some of those gaps of some of our needs that we have in our district, and so we may not be maybe asking for the right thing. So Carol, if you'll follow up on that would be great, and thank you.
Absolutely.
Additional questions regarding that? Okay, thank you. So we will move on. At this time, I'll recognize Darrell Walker to discuss the replacement of the sewer treatment filter bed at Old Richmond Elementary.
Thank you, Chairman Jones, Dr. Emery, Board. Just to add a little bit of that, the weight room at Winston-Salem Prep started growing a little bit once we added a football team there. So they didn't have one prior to that, and since they've added a team, it's sort of grown a little bit over the last, I don't know, probably 4 years now they've had a team, and that's sort of, prior to that there really wasn't one. So that's probably where that original language got into that. Before I start, I'd also like to take this public opportunity to thank Chartwell's, and I want to wish today is Amanda Mendenhall's birthday, so I'd like to publicly say happy birthday to her. And we had a fun time talking about her, sharing her birthday evening with us. So nothing would be more better to a gift than when the action item comes up, that there's no further discussion and we move on. But I'm here tonight to present, in your board book is a bid to replace sort of the sewer filtration system at Old Richmond. That system's been in since early 70s with a little bit of remodel in the mid-90s. It is failing drastically. We actually have to send people up there daily to check it. The new system would allow us to shift to a monthly inspection, and it would take us from currently we're spending $2,500 a month. It'll cut that to $200 a month and save the district considerable dollars. I'd also like to thank our county commissioners, because without those funds, we would not be able to this project. And to be honest with you, this really started failing back prior to 2010. And if you remember, we put our 10-year plan into place for the commissioners. Our first round of money was 2011. So we're just now sort of getting around in our 10-year plan to do this because of the way the money flowed for us. And so this is a great, not too often you talk about sewer being something that is great. This will be a great fix for the district and a money-saving opportunity for us. And we're all excited as we can be to fix this, because this is a daily issue that we deal with. So,
questions for Mr. Walker? Thank you, Darrell. The Curriculum Committee report, Ms. Clark.
I have lost my report. I'm not going to go over the AIG report that we just heard from Rebecca. She did an extensive overview with us last week in curriculum and covered the update, which is required by the state every 3 years. And so over the last year, we've been in process of tweaking that, and she did a great job, and with the help from a lot of other people. We also covered, as part of that, We just took a look at where our population is, and Homan, who is our assignment guru in the district, just shared with us where the kids are that are in that program, where are they located in the district, and what the growth has been in that group of children over the past few years, and what it looks like it's going to be as far out as 2025, and how that is going to affect things in the future. And then we also had an overview of our pilot program, the kindergarten assessment. Bev, is that what it's called? Kindergarten, KEA, K through 3 pilot kindergarten assessment program. And we heard from the curriculum coordinator and a kindergarten teacher at Sedge Garden, who both gave kudos to the program and said that it's the best thing since sliced bread as far as helping them really target their instruction for kindergartners. And we're going to be implementing that in additional schools this year. So that we covered all that in about 2 hours in curriculum last week, and it was, again, a great time.
Thank you, Ms. Clark. Mr. Barr, the Finance Committee report.
Sure. Chris Corbin, Director of Information Technology, made a presentation on the Teacher Device Refresh Project. The final budget amendment and transfer were discussed. A resolution to implement the state budget, adopted pay increases for 12-month employees were presented and discussed and approved by the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Barr. Mr. Singletary, Policy Committee report.
Madam Chairman, this evening we have 2 items as part of the consent agenda that will be voted on this evening. One applies to student fees, the other one applies to the Family Life and Education. As of this afternoon, we had a discussion on student fees. There was also some discussion related to PE uniforms and whether or not students were required to use those uniforms. What we did find out is that the schools provide the uniform. If students or parents would like to use them, they can purchase them. We also had a nice little discussion about our calendar and whether or not we're going to go with option A1 or option A2. So we talked quite a bit about early release days and where those needed to be placed for the benefit of our staff, our students, and of course our parents. And we also talked about in the coming school year that our own Dion Jenkins will be reviewing some of our policies for us to make sure we keep things up to date and fresh. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Singletary. Okay, that concludes our discussion items for this evening, and so we are moving on to a long list of action items. So I'm sure some will not require discussion and some may. The first item for action this evening is to consider approval of digital textbooks. As you remember, we've talked at length about this, and there's lots of documentation in your packet. Do I have a motion to approve? Mr. Mark Johnson, do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Vic Johnson, any discussion? All in favor? Thank you.
Thank you. Awesome.
Dr. Emery's extremely happy. Okay, next we have the consider approval of the academically and intellectually gifted AIG plan revisions. Do I have a motion to approve the plan? Ms. Clark? Do I have a second? Mr. Singletary? Any discussion? All in favor? Thank you. Just keep it going, that's great. Rebecca's, shoo, okay. Consider approval of the 2016-2017 bail times. Do I have a motion? Ms. Taylor, do I have a second? Mr. Singletary, any discussion? All in favor? Okay. Consider approval of the 17-18 calendar. Do I have a motion? At this time, if we want to entertain a motion and then we can have some discussion, we may want to change the motion.
Okay, I do have a motion that we eliminate the early release day, September the 20th, because I think kids are just getting into school, getting into a routine. And also it concerns me that we have 2 early release days, February the 7th and 28th, that we eliminate one of those early release days.
Which one?
The 28th.
Okay, and so you're looking at the...
I'm looking at
obviously,
A2.
You're looking at option A2.
Right.
So we have a motion on the floor to approve
There's no option with the elimination of 2 days.
Well, no, you can just, you just don't have to vote for the motion. It may not have a second, and if so, we will come back with another motion.
So, could you clarify what the motion is
Yes.
currently on the floor?
So the motion on the floor is to look at option A2 with the elimination of September the 20th, early release day, and the elimination of February 28th,
Yes.
early release day. So, believe it or not, most of the time this board usually agrees. So in a call that we don't, basically we'll have a motion. The motion can die for a lack of a second, or it could get a second. It may be approved. It could vote up or down. If that's the case, we can come back with another motion at the time for the calendar. So I have a motion, option 2A, with the elimination of September the 20th and February the 28th. Do I have a second for that motion? Okay, so I have a motion by Mr. Barr, I have a second by Ms. Taylor. So let's have some discussion at this time. I think that may help board members before we take a vote. Ms. Taylor.
I guess my concern is, well, like Mr. Barr, my concern is the students just getting into school. Everyone's just getting into their routine, and then we're interrupting the flow of things so early in the school year. And so my question would be, with eliminating that particular early release day, would that affect the teachers' their professional development in a major way?
I think we have to ask Dr. Emery and others that question.
Okay. It puts me on the spot, so I'm just going to say, up until tonight, we've not had a discussion about eliminating them completely. We've had discussion about moving them around and where they would be, but this is the first time. So you're asking me to speak on behalf of 3,000 to 4,000 teachers who lobbied really hard when I walked in the door of this district to get early release days, because they did not feel that there was time in their calendar for training. And so I'm the person who lobbied for these 6 2-hour sessions so that we sent a message to them that their training was important. So I'm going to tell you, yes, that every hour that we can get to help teachers. Now, do we need to get you some of the things you asked for today about survey data and productivity and connection? Absolutely. We're into year 2, and so those are things that you have every right to ask for. But it would be really hard for me to tell you that any time that we can get to help folks. And I understand there are complications for parents. Part of doing this now, a year out, is to try to have a well-published time so people know how to plan in advance. I think if we need to be more aggressive as a district in providing some of the other options we talked about today, whether that's for high school athletes or for kids who get stranded at a bus stop, I would much rather our challenge be to be more aggressive about serving kids who need a spot to go to than to just throw out 2 days. And I can't say I speak for every teacher. I know the biggest teacher feedback has been that they want more time on their own. And sort of the deal when we went about this was rare time to collaborate, to look at grade level data, to share lesson plans, to work on haiku. I mean, it was really meant to be time with your colleagues and not individual time to work in your classrooms. And so that is, being open and honest, that is a criticism we hear. I think teachers would like more time to be their own time, obviously, and that was not ever our original intent. So I can't not advocate for the time we already have here. It's 12 hours. If we had an unlimited budget, we would love to make this more convenient for everyone and add back a day, but that's incredibly costly for our district to do that.
So the elimination of those 2 days potentially eliminates 4 hours of professional development time. one of the questions that I think we would ask as well is how much PD are we offering? So in the scheme of that, how much are we offering to our teachers now? I know that's something that we've kind of started to talk about. So we've gone from really not offering to now we're offering as we start to move into leadership teacher academies, the leadership pathways, as we can look for 16, 17 at what that looks like. Maybe that will also be able to help us to say, are we moving as we look at the calendar for 18, 19, or are we moving away to where early release days was a way that we could offer that, but maybe moving forward that changes just a little bit.
And I think
since
they
we're
raise a
able to meet needs in other ways, and we're making that a priority
because
for our
part of that would be,
teachers.
can we move to some of what you heard from Teach for America, which is classroom embedded options for people to grow. One of the most validating things about teacher leaders we identified this school year as we've developed the pathways in the academy is they don't want to be out of class while kids are there. And so part of the request has been, what can the district do for me that doesn't take me away? And so the other thing that I would say about these 12 hours is that it's contract time, and so it's not an option. When you all asked that great big question about how much do teachers, teachers can take advantage of enormous opportunities by choice, but those chunks of time that we have that are required, these are not optional, you can't opt out. That 12 hours and then the work days that we have are really it. And so when we offer something, you'll see in that catalog or during the school year from 3 to 5 in the afternoon, there's no requirement, obviously, because people aren't on contract that they have to go.
So therefore, the only professional development would be the ones that are required?
Well, the ones, those, and then we do have opportunities during those work days.
And I want to let you know I'm not anti-early release day, but I just find it kind of odd. School starts, and then right in September you have an early release day. And then I think with staff development, we do have planning time where teachers have planning time, middle, high school, elementary. Can they not use their PLTs for some of this development? But my thing is, as a parent, you start school in August, you have Labor Day, and then 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, you've got an early release day. So I guess, just as a former teacher and also a parent, it just seems to be odd, and I just felt like I had to communicate that for our community.
Madam Chairman, with all due respect to my fellow board member, I find it extremely odd that we're even talking about 6 days out of 180. Being the son of a single mother, I empathize with any parent who has to adjust their schedule, and unfortunately, that is just a fact of life of having a child who's in school. Secondly, considering the enormous amount of public pressure and scrutiny that we put our teachers under over the last decade, to even be talking about whether or not we take away a professional development period that we're calling an early release day sort of seems odd to me, because we should be doing everything that we can to give our teachers everything that they need to make sure that they're able to properly get through their day and educate our students. I understand that there are people who have had experiences in teaching that I have not had, and I'm sure that there have been times when teachers did not wisely utilize that time. But I would bet you money that there are still teachers today that are grading papers after their kids go to bed, just like my grandmother was doing 30-some years ago. So it would be my position that we protect these early release days for these teachers, and we go ahead and select a calendar and we move forward.
And once again, just that issue, you're going to take the 20th, students come a half a day. That's going to be quality instructional time that's lost in the classroom. So those are those are my fault. And I come from a single
2
parent home,
hours.
you know?
2 hours.
2 hours,
And
2 hours.
And kids are very flexible.
Yeah, but 2 hours make a difference. I'm telling you, I was in the classroom, you know, and I had planning time for, we didn't call them POTs, but I had planning times to do some just planning and interdisciplinary things. And I think just eliminating September 20th, I don't think it's going to hurt anything.
If you were a teacher who had plenty of time to get everything done that you wanted to get done, I'm sure that you were in a very elite class.
Well, let me say this: I had plenty of time with my planning to develop the mandates from the district at that particular time, because we had staff development as well as our planning time, which normally came at the beginning of the year. So once again, I'm just thinking about August start, and then 2 or 3 weeks later, you got an early release day.
So, Mr. Barr, in that discussion piece right there, you really named September the 20th as a removal. Are you still looking to, is your original motion stand that you would like to remove the 20th and the February 28th?
You know what, as a compromise, I can live with where February 7th and 28th. Do I like it? No, but definitely I do not like the 20th. Again, folks, school is just starting, and then the kids are going to get out.
So with that being said, Mr. Barr, would you like to amend your motion? And if you amend your motion, Ms. Taylor, would you like to second that amended motion?
What are you amending to, just
Okay,
the 20th?
my motion to compromise with this board, my motion would be, let's eliminate September 20th as an early release day.
From option?
Yeah, from option A2.
I'll second that.
And you second that. So we have a motion now, an amended motion, to just eliminate September the 20th, and we're still talking about calendar option A2. And we have a second from Ms. Taylor. Any further discussion at this time? Okay. All in favor? Okay, so 4, all opposed? So it passes 4-3. Thank you.
And if I could say one more thing.
Absolutely.
I have been a part of the early release day and the professional development part once the students leave. And I think that's something we should look into, what they're doing once the children are gone, and what part of the professional development are they working on. So that's something we should look into as well.
And I think that's where the accountability piece comes in. Are we using the early release days as we should?
Let me say this, and then I won't say anything else. Correct me if I'm wrong. Can I?
I wouldn't use the school name yet.
Well, let's just do this. We heard today that we have a particular school that has not been showing improvement significantly over the last few years. All of a sudden, out of the blue, that particular school is showing improvement in all 3 areas. Guess what they put it to? They put it to staff development and time to teacher PLTs. And under the vote that we just took, we took one of those days away. So which school is not going to see that improvement this year?
Thank you, Mr. Singletary. We're going to move on to the next item, I think, after that comment. Next, we consider approval of the professional service contract with Dana Wright. Do I have a motion to approve?
So,
thank you, Mr. Barr. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Any discussion? All in favor? Thank you. Consider approval of the renewal and extension of the food service management contract. Do I have a motion to approve? Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Do I have a second? Mr. Singletary, any discussion? All in favor? Consider approval of renewal and extension of an agreement with the YMCA of Northwest North Carolina. Do I have a motion to approve? Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Vic Johnson, do I have a second? Ms. Taylor, any discussion? All in favor? Thank you. Consider approval of the renewal and extension of an agreement with Imprints Cares. Do I have a motion? Mr. Barr. Second, Mr. Vic Johnson. Any discussion? All in favor? Thank you. Consider approval of the renewal and extension of an agreement with Alpha Best Education, Inc. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Singletary, any discussion? All in favor? Consider approval for the design of the sewer treatment filter bed replacement at Old Richmond Elementary. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Do I have a second? Second. Ms. Taylor, any discussion? All in favor? Thank you. Consider of approval for the replacement of the sewer treatment filter bed. Oh, I already did that one. Okay. No, we have a... No, that's a different one. Okay. So consider approval, that was the design, sorry, I think I read the same one twice. So we just voted on the designs. Everyone okay with that? I think we're good. Now this is to consider the approval of the replacement of the sewer treatment filter bed at Old Richmond. All in favor? Oh, I need a motion. Do I have a motion? Mr. Barr? Ms. Taylor? Okay, now we'll call. All in favor? Thank you. Woo! Next, we will consider the approval of the revised Winston-Salem Police Department School Resource Officer contract for 2016-2017. Do I have a motion? Mr. Johnson, do I have a second? Second. Ms. Taylor, any discussion on the contract? All in favor? Thank you. Consider approval of the revised Forsyth County Sheriff's Department School Resource Officer contract for 2016-2017. Do I have a motion? And so Ms. Taylor and Mr. Vic Johnson, any discussion on this? All in favor? Thank you. Consider approval of the revised Kernersville Police Department School Resource Officer contract for 2016-2017. Do I have a motion to approve? Ms. Taylor, second. Mr. Singletary, any discussion? All in favor? Thank you. Consider approval of the schematic plan for Conoke Elementary School. So moved. So Mr. Singletary and Mr. Johnson, any discussion on this particular item? All in favor? Thank you. Consider approval of the schematic plan for the Lawrence Paisley Middle Schools. Mr. Singletary, I have a motion and a second by Mr. Johnson. All in favor? Thank you. Consider approval of an appointment to the Forsyth Tech Community College Board of Trustees. If you remember, we are bringing Ken Sadler's name to you. We each received a letter from the current board and their chairman requesting that we use our appointment for Mr. Sadler, whose appointment from, I believe, the governor is expiring. So do I have a motion to approve? So Mr. Singletary and a second by Mr. Johnson. All in favor? Thank you. Let's see, next to consider the approval of the budget amendment number 6 and transfer number 6. Do I have a motion to approve? Mr. Barr, do I have a second? Second. Mr. Singletary, any discussion? All in favor? Next will be to approve a resolution to approve the 12-month salary schedule according to policy 441. This is a resolution that we talked about earlier today in policy in lieu of the new budget that will be coming out from the state. So do I have a motion to approve the resolution? Mr. Barr? Second. Second, Mr. Singletary. Any discussion on this item? All in favor? Thank you. That concludes our action items for this evening. And that brings us into the consent agenda. We have a few items: approval of proposed revisions to policy 3250.2, student fees, approval of proposed revisions to policy 6140, family life education, approval of the minutes from the June 14th, 2016 meeting, and the general personnel report. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Mr. Singletary, yes, everyone. Mr. Johnson, all in favor? Thank you. That brings us to the public comment portion of our meeting, and we have one speaker signed up.